Back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. In just a minute, we're going to be bringing into the Joy Virtual Studio Courtenay Turner, a new guest on the Shannon Joy Show. She is an expert on the Technocracy and, of course, the OG, the original gangster, Patrick Wood. He is the founder of Technocracy.news, probably the world's foremost expert on technocracy. There is so much to cover, precisely because of the breathtaking pace of the implementation of the technocracy over the past 6 months via the Trump administration. We're keeping Joe Allen on with us. We'll bring him back in maybe in the next half hour or so for a little bit more commentary and maybe some discourse. I thought that first segment was very interesting. Okay, without further ado, I want to welcome into the Joy Virtual Studio Courtenay Turner and Patrick Wood. Great to see both of you. And Annie, you can take Joe down. I want to spend the next 20 to 30 minutes with Courtenay and Patrick, and then we'll bring Joe in for some commentary. But he got the first 30 minutes. I want to make sure we're giving them enough time as well. Courtenay, welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. So glad that you are here. It's your first time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. And you guys, if you don't know, if you're not familiar with Courtenay's work, it's excellent. You can follow her on X. Her handle is at Courtenay Turner, and she also has a podcast as well, an excellent podcast. Patrick Wood is with us. He is the founder of Technocracy.news, and as I mentioned, probably the world's foremost expert on the technocracy. He has been writing for decades on this topic. He knows it inside and out, and I have featured in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show. If you want a crash course in technocracy and what is coming, there is a phenomenal documentary that he just released that is linked to the show notes here on the Shannon Joy Show. The Agenda, Their Vision, Your Future. Patrick, welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Glad you're with us today.
Nice to see you. You look really good today.
Okay. All right. Well, you know, this is my first time ever having 4 people in the studio, but really appreciate you being here. And let's start with Courtenay. You wrote a piece, AI.gov, the Digital Leviathan Goes live. Last week, Patrick ran it on Technocracy.news. It was featured on your Substack, and it was a blockbuster. In fact, I spent an entire show going through that piece, word for word, essentially, because it so clearly laid out the agenda, the scope, what happened over the past 6 months, and the culpability of both parties, Donald Trump and, you know, the Democrat Party. And one of the areas that you are really great in terms of your analysis is the left hand, right hand messaging and infiltration that the technocracy have used to infiltrate both political parties, which is really interesting. So I want to give you the floor. You actually caught the tail end of some of the debate that I was having with Joe Allen about whether or not Trump is culpable for this. And, you know, I'd like to get your thoughts on that and where you see us right now with the technocracy.
Well, I'll start with where I see us right now with the technocracy. I see us moving way faster than even I anticipated, and I did think that it was going to move quickly. So it's very concerning. I think that we need to push back now, because once this infrastructure is fully implemented, it's really, really hard to turn back from there, because the way AI works is it's recursive, right? So it's just going to keep building upon itself. So once those smart contracts are in place, I don't think there's all that much hope. So I think now is really the time to push back. As far as the left and right hand path, I would encourage people to read what I wrote on the Phoenix Conspiracy. That's what I call it. And the title was kind of inspired by Brett Weinstein had done a speech at Rescue the Republic. And it was very curious to me because he spent the last 5 minutes of this speech talking about how, you know, he repeats the very famous question to Ben Franklin, you know, what type of government is this? And of course, he replies, a republic, if you can keep it. And Britt says, well, it's a republic if we can Phoenix it. And it wasn't, yeah, and it wasn't a throwaway line. Like, he went on to explain this for another 5 minutes. And he kept talking about the West, which I found kind of curious because it was Rescue the Republic. That's the title of the event, right? So the Republic is very specific. Certainly, the United States is a byproduct of Western civilization, but we are a constitutional republic. We are not the entire West, right? So
Right.
it was very specific, and I thought that was kind of interesting. So it is this idea that we have to phoenix it. So if you, for those who aren't familiar with the symbol of the phoenix, right, it's a bird that rises up from the ashes. But what a lot of people miss is they have to burn it down first for the bird to rise up. And we've heard this kind of semiotics from, like the Biden administration. We have to build back better, right? They don't tell you we're going to tear it down first, or the Great Reset. We have to tear down the old system to build the new world order. So we see this theme recurring. And in this article, I talk about how they're doing this, and they're operating through the left and the right hand path. And I really see the technocracy in terms of the big movements philosophically, which is my background, is operating through this movement called Game B, which operates through the left-hand path, and then you have the Dark Enlightenment, which a lot more people are familiar with currently because they have such a strong influence on the Trump administration. And the left-hand path typically uses the archetypes of Divine Mother, so much more emotionally driven. They tend to be, we think of the left as the thinking with emotion rather than reason. They're very much involved in what I call the Gaia religion, right? It's all about the sustainable development goals of the UN. The right-hand path tends to operate through more of the patriarchal archetype. So more of that traditionalism, kind of muscularity that you see in the manosphere, or some of what I call the Theo Bros in that article. And so you've got these two forces, these two factions, but it is dialectical. So they churn, right? So they're still driving towards the same telos, the same endpoint. And the analogy I would use is like you have a fork in the road, and one is beautiful, tree-lined, palm trees. The other one may be mountainous, but the end, they converge. They go to the same place. So it's really which path do you want to take? And Game B is much more involved in what I call spiritual eugenics. So they're disciples of people like Barbara Marx Hubbard, T.R.J. Chardin. They're much more theosophical in their framing, Neoplatonic, for those who are familiar with that reference. And the right-hand path tends to be much more autocratic. So on the left with Game B, they couch everything in words like they have their own jargon. It's like I need to make a glossary for them because they really have their own language. Things like omni-win, and they keep talking about decentralized. Everything's decentralized. They converge with people like Peter Thiel, who overlap both of them. And then certainly this concept of the network state. The network state was Balaji Srinivasan's book he wrote called The Network State, and it was inspired by Peter Thiel's concept of seasteading, which is very reminiscent of Ghislaine Maxwell's Terramar, for those who are familiar with that. But he put $1.7 million into the seasteading, which was the city-state on international waters, so they weren't subject to nation-state laws. And it didn't go very well. It didn't take off. So he then invested in Balaji Srinivasan's network states. And Balaji Srinivasan talks about how the network states are decentralized, but it's decentralized towards a re-centralized center. And I encourage people to remember that H.G. Wells talked about how you would have the decentralization of academic information institutions, so whether it be in academia or the media, these various spheres would be decentralized in order to be the conduit for the world brain. So it's just different paths. The left tends to give you more of this Fabian-style soft totalitarian, where you kind of opt into your own tyranny. They call it soft ethics. And the right-hand path tends to be, Curtis Yarvin and Nick Land. They're talking about SovCorps and GovCorp, which is where they're seeing this.
Right. And so all of these roads, whether it's left or right, lead to the ideology or the governing structure of the 21st century, which is the dream of the technocrats, that it is mass surveillance, 24-hour surveillance, biosurveillance, physical surveillance, the capture of data, mass capture of data, and controlling each human, the way that we think, the way that we eat, the way that we live, whether we procreate, all of those things through these data centers and the operations that are run by technocrats, unelected, unaccountable, right? This is not a democracy. This is not a constitutional republic. Republic, with a Bill of Rights. Like, this is something completely new. And that's, Patrick Wood, what I think most people do not understand is how dystopian this ideology is, right? It's not about technology. It is about technocracy, the ideology of the technocrat. And it is the most dystopian. Communism, socialism, fascism, they blush in the face, in my opinion, of technocracy. It is the most evil because it also implements essentially a war on humanity, right? The transhumanism and then ultimately machine control. So, Patrick, I will now go to you. Over the past 6 months, speaking of like the left hand, right hand, are you shocked? I mean, from my perspective, Joe Biden or Kamala Harris could never have gotten away with what Trump has gotten away with over the past 6 months. Can you go, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Here's my take on the whole thing. We've seen this thing constructed from the ground up. For instance, the concept of a new financial system at this point based on cryptocurrency. This has all been done since the inauguration. Basically, there was a run up to it for sure, but this was a new thing. You have to understand just how fast these technocrats can move. They can move basically at the speed of light. It seems, but they've accomplished so much in the last 6 months that it's just incredible. This reminds me of what Mark Zuckerberg said several years ago. He's an arch technocrat for sure. He said, "Move fast and break things. Unless you're breaking stuff, you're not moving fast enough." This is the whole mentality at this point of these technocrats in Washington, D.C. They're rushing in as fast as they can come in, and they're taking over healthcare at this point. There's just a meeting being converged right now on how to merge all of our healthcare data in one big lump. And you see Palantir has been selected to make sense of all the data flows that are coming out off the government right now.
Outrageous.
This was all planned from the get-go, but it just all of a sudden just stunned the country. I don't think most people in the country they can't see what happened, but it's right here, right in front of our eyes.
One of the physical elements that is on the horizon that I do not think people understand, and Patrick, I'd like you to speak to this because you explain it very well. Mark Zuckerberg, speaking of Mark Zuckerberg, said just about a week ago that using government contracts and all of the things he's going to be building Manhattan-sized data centers, okay, to collect and store and process data like the size of Manhattan. This is one of thousands of projects that we are seeing jumpstarting within the Trump administration, funded by the taxpayers through things like Stargate. Can you talk to the audience about this physical manifestation, like what these data centers? I don't think people understand what is coming with these data centers and how intrusive they will be, not only in terms of our privacy and surveillance and the churning of data, but also just in our physical landscape across the country. Can you speak to that?
Wow, there's some. I think there's about 3,200 data centers being erected, already been erected across the country. This is a huge development. These data centers they're pouring money into it, like over $1 trillion at this point this year. Some people are saying there's going to be a bubble at some point, and the whole thing is going to completely blow up. That could happen. I wish it would, but they're pouring money nilly-willy. If you even speak data center, somebody's going to pipe up and say, "Oh, let's get one here for our town." And so they're getting sprinkled all over the country, and farmland and cities and neighborhoods. It doesn't matter, but they're a huge risk for our power grid for sure. Our power grid was already overstressed. Now it's doubly overstressed. And I'm sure rates will be going through the roof this year, next year. And we probably
for energy.
Yeah, possibly we could see blackouts or brownouts. And this has never happened in America before. At this point, these technocrats, they don't give a rip about us. That they have no concern for us at all as citizens of this country. So they're running roughshod over everything, not just us, like out here in Phoenix and Tennessee or whatever, but they're running all over the government as well, and they're treating them with impunity. And they're insisting or demanding deregulation. Don't bother us. We're saving the world or saving the planet or whatever. Don't get on our back here. We'll just do what we say. Give us all the money we ask for. Clear the slate for regulations, you name it. And you see this antipathy between the technocrats and the political class in our country. This has never been that has not been visible before. I see it so clearly now.
Yes. Back to Courtenay Turner regarding what we just heard from Patrick and the impact of these data centers on American life. From your perspective, everything from the digital ID to digital currency, the tokenization of everything, how do you see that impacting regular American life? And how soon do you see that impact manifesting so that people actually see it? Because it's very interesting. It sounds like we're talking in the abstract. Last year, we were really talking in the abstract. It seems more real today, given the past 6 months. And I believe, people are going to wake up, they're going to look at their 401k. All of a sudden, it is invested in crypto. And they didn't even know it. I mean, how do you see this manifesting in just the average American life?
Well, I hope to be wrong on this because I'm really terrified of what could happen. I think the goal is the tokenization of everything. And when I say tokenization, I think a lot of people are thinking about digital currencies. And it's important for people to understand that as well, because I know Trump did his ban on CBDCs, which is central bank digital currencies. But right now, we have now the Genius Act that he signed, the Stable Act, and the Clarity Act that are lined up, ready to go. Following that, which are really creating the infrastructure for what could be termed Congress-backed digital currencies. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, I actually think this is even worse than central bank digital currencies. There is actually some regulation on central bank digital currencies. I'm not advocating them at all. I'm glad that we're pushing back on them. However, I am not in favor of this Congress-backed digital currencies that it looks like they're rolling out. But this is a conduit for the tokenization. So I think that they are trying to change over the financial system into a digital system, which means that everything can be surveilled and tracked. And certainly everything can be programmed. And I think that's a really, really key component that a lot of people are not really thinking about what that means when everything is programmed. Every transaction you make, is surveilled and then could be debanked. You could have, any transaction you want to make, it could be cut off. Really, they could do almost anything to you through that. I mean, their financial data is one of the most private, I actually think. A lot of people are opposed to taxes because it's thievery, and I would agree with that. However, I think it's also such an invasion. It's a blatant violation of the Fourth Amendment. It's one of the most personal, private things you could know about a person. It's why they data mine all of these things under the guise of selling you, right? They want to market things that you actually want to see, and that's how they couch it, very Bernaysian. But really, they're data mining to collect as much information on you as possible so that they can control us and program us. And that is very concerning to me because the tokenization, as Pat just implied, also applies to medical, the AI precision medical. We're seeing it in education with the tech ed. We're seeing it in politics where they're trying to change things over to, they have different names for it, like, conviction voting, quadratic voting, liquid democracy, but ranked choice voting, but it's all through these technologies, and they, of course, sell it with very nice marketing and platitudes. But this is a surveillance grid, and it would really impact people in their daily lives. I mean, we can just look to China as a model for what that looks like.
Right, controlling our actions and our decision making and essentially everything using the collection and the processing of our data. Even Bobby Kennedy Jr. Making a statement that he plans to make wearables great again. He wants every American on a biosurveillance wearable within 4 years. So they're going for everything. In terms of tokenization, it's essentially creating a digital mirror counterpart for every physical thing on the planet. So they can tokenize your mortgage. They can tokenize a blade of grass. They can tokenize a tree. They can tokenize humans. Okay.
Your biometric data, they can tokenize that. Yeah. And when they start implementing the Internet of Nanobio things, and I know that sounds crazy conspiracy, but there's so much literature on it. You can even just look at the UN literature and the AI World Society on it. So it's very real. There are universities all over the world. And I'll just finish with this. RFK did say that he's changing MAHA. MAHA is really about MABA, Make America Biotech Accelerate. So he's actually using the term accelerationism in this MABA. It's kind of...
Yeah, and essentially when they're able to tokenize, they can monetize and then they can trade on the open market, right? So they can essentially trade. It is the epitome of human slavery. I mean, they could trade on our biometric data, put a value to it, right? And like, it's mind boggling. And they write about these things. Listen, don't shoot the messenger. Okay. Like people say that this is crazy. I'm just regurgitating back to you the things that they are writing about, the things that they are talking about in their forums, the things that Yuval Harari and Yarvin are talking about. Again, two sides at the same coin. We're going to go to break in a moment, but either one of you can pipe in here. Where does Trump fit into all of this? Is he a dupe? Is he a puppet? Is he in all of it? Has he been just completely purchased by the tech bros? Is it over? Because we're going to bring Mike Allen back in after the break, and I hope we can have a freewheeling kind of discussion. Joe Allen, Mike Allen, Joe Allen in after the break, and hopefully we can have a freewheeling discussion. But where do you think he plays into this? Because from my perspective, the belief that somehow he is outside of this, it's not his fault, he doesn't know, he's going to come around, he's going to, see the light and stop all of it, I just think I don't know. I mean, that is a lot of hopium right there from my perspective. Courtney, I'll go to you first, and then Patrick will end with you. Then we'll go to break. We'll bring Joe back in, and we'll close out the show. But go ahead.
So I heard you say that you don't think they could have done this under Kamala, and I think that that's accurate. I do think that Kamala, they're going to roll with the technocracy regardless of who's in office. Quite honestly, this plan has been in the works. Certainly, Pat can speak to this. He's been covering it for decades, but well over a century. And I would even say, if you really go to the roots of it, it's millennia. Quite honestly, so these are the plans. They are doing whatever possible to execute these plans, regardless of who is in office. However, I do think that they have, paid off and infiltrated this administration, and they have worked deals with Trump so that he can be the facilitator. And I'm not on the inside. I don't talk to him on a daily basis. My personal opinion is I don't know how much he really understands the ramifications of technocracy. I just don't think that's where his focus is. And he's kind of excited. Oh, we're going to have boom. We're going to have progress, all this kind of stuff, whatever lines they've sold him. But I do think that they are moving much faster under Trump than they possibly could have under the left. So,
yeah. And we have to remember multiple rug pulls by Donald Trump with his meme coins, the Trump coin, the Melania coin. So he has made billions.
AI action plan.
Yeah. He's made billions in crypto. Billions in crypto just in the past. Trump himself. And that was reported by, I believe, New York Times. They did a breakdown in his increase in wealth over the past 6 months. It's not just Palantir that's up 65%. Trump is as well. Patrick, I will go to you before we go to break. Your thoughts on that?
Let me say, Trump understands this much. Central bank digital currencies were all about money and payment systems. this new system that's being erected right now, based on cryptocurrencies, is far, far more capable than the old monetary system. That's why Trump has exited out in the first place with his first executive order banning the Fed to implement central bank digital currency. Why is this new system more threatening to us? Because it's an asset-based system, not a debt-based system. Assets can be digitized and monetized. For instance, the land of the United States that the United States owns, I think it's something like over 500 million acres that the U.S. owned as its own property. This can all be digitized and turned into currency. The central bank never saw this coming. They never planned for it. They were talking basically just facilitating transfers of money between international parties, et cetera, et cetera. This is far more pervasive. And I have to say, this new America's AI plan document that just came out last week or 2 weeks ago, it clearly delineates that Trump intends to take this whole system, even AI and the monetary system, to the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And when he talks about taking the AI stack, if you will, that's hardware and everything else, he wants to move this to all of our allies around the world, get them hooked on it as well. They'll be part of the monetary system. Goodbye BRICS. Goodbye any other competitor. China is not even close to us at this point. So you see this master plan. This is what Trump understands. He doesn't have to understand technocracy per se.
Right.
And I think he does. I really think he does. But this fits into his plan to basically build empire around the world.
Yes, absolutely. And so that's built, though, on human slavery. So it's the export of human slavery. It is total technocracy, total surveillance, complete control. And the United States of America, via Donald Trump, will be exporting this as fast as they can to our allies, pressuring them into submitting to this system. That's astounding. That is an astounding statement, Patrick. Quite a panel today on the Shannon Joy Show. When we come back, we're going to bring Joe Allen back into the Joy Virtual Studio. He has been waiting and listening to the discourse with Patrick Wood and Courtenay Turner. And we're just going to kind of open it up and see if we can have a free-for-all here in the last 20 to 23 minutes on the Shannon Joy Show. So keep it tuned right here. All right, let's bring in the whole panel. Joe, thank you so much for sitting through that last segment. Patrick and Courtenay, you guys are amazing. Again, this is the first time I've ever had 4 guests, and actually the first time I've ever done a free-for-all. So I have no idea how this is going to go. But I think that, let's start with you, Joe. You've heard the reports and the information from Courtenay and Patrick. What do you make of their perspective, really like laying a lot of this at the feet of the Trump administration, and something that he's not going to stop doing? I mean, this, unless we resist against him and this administration, my perspective, I think they agree, is that he's going to be pedal to the metal. Your thoughts on that?
Trump's a very unpredictable character. I'll just leave it at that. Courtenay and Patrick I've known for years now, and they know me to be a very agreeable person. I'm in no way confrontational or argumentative. So I think in the spirit of agreeableness, the first thing I want to look at is just what is it we're trying to protect from these various technological predations. And I think we're all in agreement that first and foremost, it is the kind of organic community, the organic human being, the organic mind, but also on a much deeper level, the spiritual heritage of what we are as human beings, as Americans, and people across the world. Those two elements, they don't jive with everybody, but those two elements of continuity of culture, continuity of spiritual tradition, and just continuity of the body, we're trying to protect against that. As far as who is doing this, right? Like, and how it's being done. The one thing that I want to distinguish my perspective from both Patrick's and Courtenay's, at least to some degree, is there is a very broad spectrum of interests and competing interests involved in all of this. Just the mainline example, the most powerful tech corporations on earth, beginning with Google, working towards artificial general intelligence, that really began in earnest in the early 2000 teens. And OpenAI was founded by Altman and Musk in order to try to get in on that race and compete against what they felt was coming from Google's DeepMind, which was artificial general and then self-improving to the point of artificial superintelligence. They set about that task. You then had a spin-off from there with Dario Amodei leaving OpenAI to found Anthropic, which has a very different mission. Yes, they're all moving towards AGI, but the way in which they're doing it and the purpose for which they're doing it, quite different. And then you have the development of XAI. And Musk's vision on this is quite distinct from Altman's, quite distinct from Amodei's, quite distinct from Demis Hassabis at Google. But with all those differences, what's in common across it is this love of technology and this belief that technology will solve human problems. Technology will solve spiritual problems. And a lot of the solutions offered to the problem of technology itself, of these megacorps taking over, come from people like Jim Root with his Plan B idea, or people like Curtis Yarvin and Balaji Srinivasan with the network state, or Yarvin's vision of the monarchy over the kind of bureaucratic blob. I don't agree with any of those, right? I don't agree with the central corporations. I don't agree with the ideas of Jim Root, at least not all of them, and not the ideas of Yarvin, at least not all of them. But what they represent are competing factions. I don't think there is one single master beyond the metaphysical level that is pulling all these strings. And it would be like saying that because we have extreme right-wing Luddites and we have extreme left-wing Luddites, that there's some central shady cabal pulling the strings of the Luddite impulse. I simply don't see that. I think that one of the big problems and also the hopes that we have, a problem is if you knock out one, another takes his place. One of the hopes you have, though, is that because the system is in constant flux, because the system is being driven by all these competing agendas, that it's possible to exert your agenda on that system or to escape it and create your own kind of sub-civilization.
So I hear what you're saying, but I think the issue here, like right now, we have a Trump administration. We have a front-facing administration that is doing things, very clear things. There is discernible policy outcomes. We have executive orders. We have emergency declarations. We have pieces of legislation. And so to kind of, delve into like this higher discussion about the other side, I mean, we have someone to oppose right now. Patrick, let's have your response and then we can go to Courtenay.
A lot of people, people in the world generally, they talk about evolution, and evolution is basically just happenstance, just things colliding into each other, and somehow we all got here, and here we are. Well, I don't believe in the non-directed evolution of history, and I understand. I know a lot of people probably will raise an eyebrow at this, but since at least 1973, with the formation of the Trilateral Commission, we've experienced directed evolution, if you will, in the sense that this whole thing has crept up on us to today, and you can see their hand guiding things along the way to achieve the purposes that we see today. It's no mistake that these technologies were invented. Yes, they were, and that certainly was that could have taken another turn. But the technologies did get invented. They've served the purpose of the masters who were controlling it. And at this point, AI has morphed into this all-powerful weapon for them to achieve their purposes. I said from the beginning with when the Trilateral Commission was formed in 1973, I've said from the beginning, it was all about resources, from the get-go. They wanted to take all the resources of the world away from you and me and the nation states as well, put them in a global common trust and be managed by them. Mm. This is the same plan today. If we look at the digitization of all assets in the world, what do you think that's all about? If you look back, do you see the whole thing was laid out in the first place? They didn't have the ability to do that back in 1973, but they do now. So I see this as kind of the culmination of that guiding hand, if you will. Mm. And it's still there. It's still guiding things even at this point.
And so let's go to Courtenay, because that is actually one of your areas of expertise is the dialectic, the Hegelian dialectic, the left, right, like using. So Trump has never been the savior. He has never been about freedom. He's never been about making America great again. He is a construct. He is a part of an elaborate kabuki theater. He plays his role and really marches. This is why I liken him to a Trojan horse. But essentially, it is the series of false choices, the lesser of two evil, over and over and over until you just get plain evil is kind of the way that I see it. I know you would disagree with that, Joe, but Courtenay, I think you would say this is how they're implementing this. You know, what is your opinion, or how do you see that playing out? And what is the evidence or the proof that you have from your perspective that is indeed what we're witnessing today?
I think that is indeed what we're witnessing today. And I think, what Joe is alluding to is that, this idea that there's some like mysterious cabal that's pulling all the strings, and he doesn't agree with that. I would say I'm kind of in the middle on that. Honestly, I don't know that it matters, because as you pointed out, Shannon, that right now we have things that are tangible that we have to face and we have to do something about. I think it's incumbent upon us, we the people of the United States of America, particularly, but I do believe it's the beacon of the free will for the world. I have a beekeeper analogy, and I think America is kind of the beekeeper. And it's not that there aren't wonderful people and places doing incredible things all over the world, but we have this very unique document, and it was called the Declaration of Independence. And it is the only document in history that codified in writing that we were endowed by our Creator with inalienable rights, the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that is incredibly, incredibly powerful. And it enshrines in it a specific worldview. And, we do have the First Amendment. You're entitled to have whatever worldview you want and still be a citizen of the United States, which is beautiful. However, inherent in that is that we do have these rights and that we didn't create them. We are not God. We don't become God. It's not through theurgy, self-apotheosis type of process. We were endowed with them from our Creator. That is our free will. Mm. So I think that we can quibble about who are the machinations, who are the hands. I do think the Trilateral Commission and their acolytes have a huge hand in all of this. It's very evident, as Pat had laid out very clearly with all the receipts, what their plans were and how they've executed this, and that they play the long game. And so part of the dialectic is the long game, right? This is the you've got these opposing forces, and then they get synthesized. I'll leave out all the philosophical jargon for the purposes of this conversation.
We'll have you on next week, Courtenay. We'll do a deep dive with you next week. We'll bring you in again. Yeah.
Okay. But people understand the thesis, antithesis, synthesis. But really, in order to do that, it is a long game. I'm in the process of writing a book on Hegelian dialectics. I've got the preview of it up on my Substack. It's called Hegel's Dialectic and Gnostic Jacob Flatter, a Machinery of Control. And that is how I see it. So the dialectic, it's a spiral, and it turns toward what he called the world geist. This is the radical freedom at the end, but it's freedom as a collective. So all this to say, though, that I do think that Trump is being utilized to execute this plan. And there's a document people can look up. It's called From Mice to Rascals. MICE stands for money, ideology, coercion, and ego. And if you read this, it's on CIA.gov. You'll see very clearly that he fits the mold of what they would use as a change agent. And I very much see that that's what is occurring. I think he has his own interests, his own motives, and that's all implied in the MICE framework. And they're playing on that to get him to facilitate this plan. But yes, they give you the different flavors, right? So you're, for the people who are going to reject what we're seeing as this Yarvin land type of soft corp monarchy CEO dictatorship, right? Because Yarvin said American problem is we need a reboot. We have to get over our fear of the dictator.
He's the darling of the conservative right, by the way, Yarvin, this dictator guy. Like, they love him. Okay. Anyway.
Oh, yes. And so, but I think a lot of people are opposing that right now. So that's the perfect vehicle to push you into those who don't like that flavor of technocracy. Oh, we've got this, more soft kind of left operating path of like the Game B type of plan. So they give you the different, but ultimately the end goal is the same. The teleos is shared. And one of the things that I'll just wrap with this, so I give you guys time to talk. But when Joe was talking about like they're competing, I think that when you've got powerful figures, they're always competing, right? They want to be the ruler. They want to be the ultimate controller. So of course they're going to compete, and there's always going to be warring factions. And I think a lot of those are genuine because they're competing for power.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
However, they have a shared worldview, and the shared worldview is this scientific dictatorship or scientific, socialism, but both roads lead to the technocracy. So.
Yes. Yeah. I tend to see that's where our opportunity is as the little people. Like, let them rip each other's faces off and wrestle each other off a cliff. And then maybe we might have a shot as humans. Joe, I would love for you to respond to Courtney's analysis, and Patrick, your thoughts.
I know we're short on time, so I'm just going to keep this really brief. I don't trust the plan, not the benevolent plan, not the malevolent plan. I don't think there is the plan. I don't think there is a shared ideology, really. Certainly not when you go from Jim Rutt. Even Jim Rutt's ideas on people like Desjardins and stuff like that, I mean, he doesn't have any use for that sort of mysticism. So like even within those movements, you have all these disagreements. But the real question, and we don't have time to answer it, but I think that since we began with Trump and his AI action plan, the policy recommendations on how to govern AI, if you look to California, you have 18 laws on the books. I think all of them are quite reasonable. If you look at Texas, they have a new law on the books. It's pretty comprehensive, quite reasonable. If you look at Josh Hawley's proposed AI Accountability and Personal Data Protection Act, I think it's extraordinarily reasonable. But the real question then, if you're going to discard any promise or any intent to drive Trump's administration or the federal government at all, the question then becomes, how does one properly govern artificial intelligence?
Well, I think that's where they want us, Joe Allen. I think they want the federal government and King Trump to govern the new technocracy. And so you just fell for the trap, Joe. Come on, Joe.
Well, they're taking the government out of this process. They're handing it over to the tech companies and removing the federal government from most of this. So,
Yeah. I think that first we need we do need people to wake up. I think we need to call this for what it is, call Trump out, put a stop to everything, halt it right now, slow it down, throw wrenches in the process, peaceful noncompliance, refusal to comply, don't take the digital ID, don't take their digital currencies. And I think that I think that will be the next conversation, because I know that for me, I'm optimistic. I think these guys are powerful. I don't think they're that powerful. I think the tech is good. I don't think it's that good. I don't think it's nearly as scary as people want to say. And they're just using it as a vehicle to gain more power and control. So we cut them off at the power and control. We pick the things about technology that we like as humans, and we reject all of the rest. And we retain our God-given natural rights and our humanity. And I think that that's the discussion we need to have moving forward. But we can't have it if we are, knee deep in hopium that Donald Trump is somehow going to save us from any of this. Like, he's the villain, guys. And I think that's my perspective here. But Joe, you've been a great guest. I loved having you on. I thought the discourse was great. Courtney Turner, great to introduce you to this audience. Patrick, we love you. I mean, you're welcome on the show anytime you want to discuss, because I think this is going to be the topic. I mean, this is going to dominate the headlines, I think, for the next 18 to 24 months. So Great discussion to all of you. 15 seconds for each of you guys to close out and pitch your sites or wherever you are, and then we'll wrap it up. Patrick?
I'll say technocracy.news. That's the only place to go for news on technocracy. I have to say, it's technocracy news and trends. I've been a trend forecaster for 25 years at this point.
Amazing.
I don't stress that, but when I say there's a trend underfoot, that's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I look at this stuff this way, and so go there, get in the stream, and you'll understand very quickly what technocracy is all about.
Excellent. Joe, go ahead.
First and foremost, I want to say thank you very much for having me on. I think this diversity of viewpoint is really important. I've learned a tremendous amount from Patrick Wood over the years, and I've enjoyed arguing with Courtenay over the years. You can find everything at joebot.xyz and social media slave chain. You can bust me on my smartphone again next time. JoeBotXYZ, JoeBotXYZ.
All right. Thanks, Joe. And Courtenay Turner, closing it up.
Well, thank you so much for having me. You can find me at CourtenayTurner.com. I spell my name a little bit differently. It is pronounced Courtenay, but it's spelled like Courtenay. So it's CourtenayTurner.com. And that's the best place to find all my podcasts, all of my various platforms and social media. I'm also pretty actively writing on Substack. So you can find me at CourtenayTurner.substack.com.
Excellent, excellent panel. Thank you all. We'll have you all